Hockey talk show on a Wednesday. I'm off from my regular gig, so all these days are just blending into one, but it's nice to be talking to you about hockey on a Wednesday. I absolutely love the title of tonight's show, Santa Torts and Star Wars. We are really, getting into the nitty-gritty as far as niche programming goes. But Santa Torts and Star Wars. The National Hockey League has been taken over by Star Wars. We're going to get into it on the program tonight. Also, we call the episode Santa Torts because John Tortorella has again delivered, and just in time for Christmas, left another little present for all of us here in the hockey-loving world, and I can't wait to get into that with you as well. We're also going to talk about maybe some rumors. We got a lot of injuries to talk about, especially to the top clubs, and how that's going to affect the rest of the league. Some goaltending changes with the New York Islanders that we touched upon just a little while ago. And we've had a waiver wire pickup, which I am downright fascinated by, seemingly because this person was protected in the expansion draft and then went to Vegas anyway. So we're going to talk about that little debacle and how that all went down. Your calls at 631-438-1768 if you want to get in and argue on the show about anything in particular. If not, drop a comment below. We'll answer all the questions, get your opinion on everything else. First of all, here's a great question to start. Do you think that Star Wars has a place in the National Hockey League? That's what I want to know, first of all. Should the league be doing things like Star Wars nights, because it's spread like a virus in the National Hockey League so far this year? I want to know your thoughts on this. How do you feel about Star Wars just invading the National Hockey League? The force is strong in the National Hockey League right now. Super strong. That is not the last Star Wars pun you're going to get of the night. I have a feeling we're in for a whole lot more. Feel free to rate the puns in the comments section below as well. So your thoughts on that? Should Star Wars be involved? Should the National Hockey League be allowing such tomfoolery to happen? Curious to know your thoughts on that one. We'll touch on the rumor mill as well, and just go around the league a little bit here with some of the news as we head into a busy night for hockey in the National Hockey League. Great show last time around. Thanks to everybody who shared it. We had great numbers all around. Podcast, YouTube was particularly strong. Facebook was great as always. So thank you guys for continuing to hit that like button. You could do that right now, or hitting the share button. I'm trying to hook up with some of the hockey groups that are out there, because there's a couple of great ones that I partake in, and I'm trying to fine tune them and involve them in the show a little bit more to continue to grow our little hockey community here. So we'll stay up to date with that as well. I'm trying to think, where do you want to go? Should we start with the injuries of the Devils? I like to start with a soft topic before we get into our big topics, because everybody's still kind of catching on and getting into the program here. But the Devils, courtesy of their Twitter, let's bring that up for you on the big screen so you guys can take a look-see here. Devils placing Marcus Johansson, bruised ankle, on IR. Retroactive to the Rangers game. The Devils have called up Nick Lappin from Binghamton, and he will meet the team in Montreal. That's not all, though. The Devils had another injury, if I'm not mistaken, right? What was the other injury the Devils had? I had it in my notes here, and now I missed it. That's Pittsburgh. That's that. No, hang on there, Santa Torts. We're not ready for you just yet. I forget who it was. The Devils just... Oh, Taylor Hall. That's right. Taylor Hall is going to be out. He's got a knee thing. He's day-to-day with the Devils. So tough goings for the New Jersey Devils right now as they continue to defy expectations and sit at the top of this league, and now losing Marcus Johansson and Taylor Hall for a decent amount of time. Taylor Hall day-to-day has got that wide skating stance, if you've ever seen him, and I think he clipped knees with somebody in their last game, so he's going to be out for a little while. Not great news for the Devils. We talked about the fact that the Devils may be the perfect team to pick up Erik Karlsson from the Ottawa Senators. And this got wrapped up into some other discussion. And somebody said to me, what would you give up for an Erik Karlsson? And you'd have to give up a considerable amount. And a couple of the comments that came from the show, post-show yesterday was, well, the first thing that they would be asking for is Nico Hischier, and that's a non-starter. And I wonder about that. I don't know. Not that I'm saying they should trade him. I don't know if Ottawa would ask for Nico Hischier necessarily. It would certainly be nice. It would be great to acquire a player like Nico Hischier, but I don't know if I definitely think it's a non-starter. I definitely do think it's a non-starter. But you know, you look down this list of forwards that they have, and you know, a Nick Lappin might be something to think about in there. A Kyle Palmieri might be something to think about. Makes a decent amount of cash. You know, he's not a 20-year-old kid no more. That might be something to do. You know, they have a couple of the weird thing is I think they would be more likely to give up a defenseman. Like, I would hate to give up a Mirko Mueller, and I wouldn't want to, but in exchange for Karlsson, I would do it. Now, I would love Mueller, Butcher, Green, Karlsson. Like, to me, that's like a great, but you do have like a little bit of a logjam here as I look at the defensive core for the Devils. They do have quite a bit of defensemen. I think with 2 firsts, and I'm just looking at this, they have a lot of kids from Long Island. Keith Kincaid is from Farmingville. I didn't know that. And Kyle Palmieri is from Smithtown. I knew that. I didn't know Keith Kincaid was a Long Island kid. Anyway, I do think they have some pieces. I do think 2 firsts and a couple of pieces brings in your Erik Karlsson. Now, 2 firsts might be a little too much, you know, and a good player might be a little too much to handle if you're the Devils. But think about how game-changing Erik Karlsson, like, you're going to have to give up something big. I get that you don't want your #1 draft pick to go in that mix. I get you want to hold on to a Nico Hischier, but I don't think it is a conversation ender. I think that the Devils could still conjure up a package, you know, enough, like a Ben Lovejoy. Again, these guys aren't huge assets, but when you look around the league and what other teams are going to be able to give up in exchange for Ottawa, I do think that the Devils can put together a decent enough package to get something done. But I do worry about them on this run here because they have fallen to 3rd in the Metro. The Metro is weird. The Metropolitan Division right now is set up so that if you go on a 4-game losing streak, you're going to hit the bottom of the barrel. Like, it's that intense. Like, teams are picking up points nonstop. These overtime games where a team picks up a point, it seems like every night someone's getting a point, you know, somewhere. So that is definitely, like, it's tough. You honestly are in a really tight race and can't afford to lose anything. Devils just a point in front of the Islanders for the 3rd spot in the Metropolitan Division. By the way, great slate of games tonight. Going to try and end the show before 7 o'clock here. We got Rangers and Ottawa. We got Dallas and the Islanders, Detroit and Boston, Nashville and Vancouver. So some really nice games all around. Be interesting to see how Ottawa does against the New York Rangers. I think the Rangers will destroy them tonight, and I think as they continue to lose these games, the reality of trading an Erik Karlsson will become even more evident. And I think those conversations will start to intensify with Pierre Dorian. I haven't heard too much about that, although we might catch a little bit when we get into our rumors segment. So that is definitely something to think about as we move forward through this season. Also picking up a little bit of house cleaning here. My man Brian Compton over at NHL.com, sweetheart of a guy, has dug weight on the quote this afternoon saying, quote, "We're running with Yarrow a little bit. He's earned it. It doesn't have to be controversy. The fact that he's playing pretty well right now, he's going to play the majority until things change. towards the end of last show, we talked about this a little bit. I kind of touched on this, that I did find it a little bizarre and contradictory to what the Isles have been doing the last 4 or 5 seasons, that Yarrow has been given the net and they're not splitting. I shouldn't say last 4 or 5. I should say last 1 or 2. And it's not controversial per se, but he is on the last year of his contract. Like I said, you do have Grice on 3 more years. So that is something to worry about. I think Yarrow has been playing good, but I think the split between the two of them has been good. But it's interesting to see where this has come sort of in full circle, because you had that whole entire year where the Isles went with 3 goalies just so they would have somebody to sacrifice to the hockey gods of expansion when that came around. And, they wound up doing that, and they let their 3rd goaltender go. I don't even forget the kid's name now at this point. He was like a hot prospect at one point. Now nothing. Just really nothing. He got passed around on waivers too a little bit. It'll come to me. If you think of his name, put it in the comments. You went from that and Yarrow being put down in the minors and nobody claiming him to now he is essentially a part of a team that is in the wild card spot right now, a point out of the 3rd playoffs. Like, it's amazing the swings in the league sometimes, especially with goaltenders. You could find yourself in the minors riding buses around, and next thing you know, less than a year later, your coach is like, I'm running with that guy because he's carrying us through. So it's just so bizarre how that happens. He's going to play the majority until things change. This is a big turnaround for the Islanders, who were really hardcore on a split for definitely last year. And the year before that, even, there was that split. This really hasn't been Yarrow's net for a couple of seasons now. So it's interesting to see that. Before we get into my man Torts, we'll do that next, I promise. But the Vegas Golden Knights have put in a waiver claim, and this is particularly interesting. And we'll bring up Pierre LeBrun's Twitter right there, so you guys can get a look at that one. Ryan Carpenter claimed off of waivers from San Jose. Vegas had watched him a bit last year as a player of interest during the expansion draft scouting, but the Sharks protected him. Again, talk about how interesting it is that things can swing big time in the National Hockey League. Here's a guy that you wasted a protection spot on, and then eventually you wind up just throwing him on waivers, and he goes to the Vegas Golden Knights anyway. I mean, how crazy is that? That's like nuts to me. I mean, you think about, all the talk going into boy, I wish we had the Hockey Talk show last season, because there was so many articles written and so many things about who to protect and who not to protect, and no trade clauses and all this and that stuff. By the way, remind me, I got something to say about Ottawa as far as this goes too. And then, you go and you protect a guy like Ryan Carpenter, 26 years old, shows a fairly good amount of potential. Young guy, and then you wind up, dishing him out on waivers anyway. Like, I mean, it's kind of nuts how those kinds of things happened. 16 games for Carpenter so far this season, just 1 assist. I don't get to see a lot of Sharks action, but I haven't really been paying too much attention closely to Ryan Carpenter here. He had 4 points in 11 games for the Sharks last season, and just 1 point in 16 games this season. He was a +5 for the Sharks last season, so the kid looked, pretty okay. 6-foot center, 200 pounds. Hasn't had a ton of success as a young kid, but definitely a capable NHL player. Bottom 6 forward. Yeah, Carpenter is from Orlando, Florida. That is true. Not a hotbed of hockey action down there in Orlando, but Carpenter found a way to break through and just really couldn't find a spot in the roster for the Sharks. So after they wasted a slot protecting him, he finds himself on his way over to the Vegas Golden Knights anyway, where there's a whole different kind of magic over there. Whole different kind of magic over there in Vegas compared to Orlando. Let's get into Santa Torts. I mean, how do you not love this guy? I mean, I think we did. I'm not exactly sure what number episode it was, but I think it was one of the live shows where we dedicated like a whole show to just the brilliance of John Tortorella. Oh, the expansion draft. Thank you. Quickly, the expansion draft. I was looking at the Ottawa Senators, and this is good to bring up because of, you know, there are more strip clubs in Vegas. I have actually counted. I've spent a lot of time in Orlando counting. But what's weird about the strip clubs in Orlando, they wear Mickey ears. I don't really approve that. A lot of Mickey and Minnie ears in the strip clubs. It's just a little bizarre. Anyway, point is this. I was thinking about Ottawa tonight. Do you remember when they asked Dion Phaneuf if he would waive his no trade? Because that was part of the deal. You only got to protect a certain amount of players. And if a player had a no trade, you had to protect him. You couldn't leave him unprotected and have him getting claimed. That defeats the purpose of the no trade clause. This was a decision that the National Hockey League had to make. They had to make this decision. And the decision that they went with was respect the trade clause. You know, if somebody has it, you can't just lose them on, you know, that defeats the purpose. It would have been great if Ottawa could have lost Dion Phaneuf on waivers. On the expansion draft, I should say. But they asked Dion to waive his no trade clause so they didn't have to waste a protection spot on him. And he said no. You guys remember that? He said no. And, you know, I was thinking about that. And if you're looking at the Ottawa Senators right now and why they're having so many issues, that, you know, you can really point to that moment where Dion said no, and then they lost another. Who did they lose? Mark Mathot, I think. I think Vegas took Mathot in the expansion draft for them. That was a key moment for the Ottawa Senators, wherein you started to see a little bit of a crack in the locker room. You know, that was like that first, like there was a little bit of a crack in the locker room right there where, you know, all right, he's not going to waive, and now we're going to go ahead and lose another key member, and it was Mark Mathot. So you lose a Mark Mathot who, you know, by all accounts, from what I understand, Erik Karlsson loved playing with, to protect Dion Phaneuf, who's making $7 million a year. And is he really having that sort of an output on the ice for you? He's a solid defenseman. Dion Phaneuf, I'll take Dion Phaneuf any day of the week in my top six, but not at $7 million. I mean, that's insanity. You know, that's insanity. Eddie V, welcome to the program, man. Dion was a jerk in the Leafs dressing room. Never sat or spoke to others. Dion is a little bit of a tough guy. He is a little bit of a tough guy, Dion Phaneuf. Maybe not the easiest person in the world to get along with. But I mean, I respect his game greatly, you know. I really do respect his game greatly. And I'm not necessarily talking about his game on the ice as much as I'm talking about his game off the ice. Let's recognize for a second that Alicia Cuthbert is his wife. All right. You got to have hella good game to reel in a hottie like young Alicia or Elisha? Alicia, I think. Damn, she's beautiful. And by the way, if you were married to a nice young lady like this, don't you think you'd be smiling a little bit more, talking to your buddies? I'd be talking to everybody. If I, you know, if I was married to a world-class supermodel, which, by the way, I came pretty close to my wife. What's up, honey? I'd be out there with my wallet-sized photos, being like, "Look, everybody, look at how my wife is. Look, it's amazing." And I'd be in there talking to everybody. I wouldn't be so nasty. I really wouldn't. But anyway. You look at the Buffalo Sabres, you look at the Ottawa Senators, Montreal, the Rangers in the beginning of the season, and you think to yourself, what's wrong? What, you know, and the Rangers were able to turn it around. Lundqvist picked up his game. You know, the massive amount of third line forwards that the Rangers have figured out a way to start scoring. You know, and start winning enough to, you know, cover up all their mistakes, not having a first or second line center, having Rick Nash dragging everybody down. I mean, think about poor Pavel Buchnevich and how great of a skater he is when he turns around and he looks and there's Rick Nash just hanging onto the back of his jersey, being dragged around the ice. I mean, they've really found a way to turn it around despite their shortfalls, which there's plenty of. And you look at the Montreal Canadiens, and they haven't been able to, although they've picked it up at times because of Carey Price. And then you look at Ottawa, and they really haven't been able to. And you look at Buffalo, and again, tanking. Edmonton, they just can't seem to get out of their way. It breaks right for some, the Rangers, and it doesn't for others. All those other teams are just named. And you go back and you track through and you try and figure it out. And yeah, you look at the Ottawa Senators. Could have been that moment where Dion said, I'm not, you know, lifting my no trade. And now you're stuck with a $7 million player not contributing as much as he should be. And you lose a guy like Mark Mathot. Think about how Erik Karlsson feels making less than Dion this year and next year. Think about the other defensemen and the other players in that dressing room. They're looking over, and Dion is cashing $7 million checks while they're not, and they're contributing more than he. I mean, that's going to build animosity. That's how locker rooms break down. Egos are very big in the National Hockey League. Very, very big. All that stuff is important. Who goes out on the ice last, where people dress, where you put your sticks. That's a big, there's a way of doing things in the locker rooms. Don't think there's not for a second. And, you know, it really is an issue. You look at Buffalo now, you're starting to hear rumblings. They're going to fire the coach. Well, you went into this season with an underachieving Kyle Okposo and, you know, what's his name, 26 that they waived already. You went into the season with a first-year head coach. You just put your big star, who I don't even know if he's still of legal drinking age, into a huge contract, put the franchise on his shoulders, and it's not going well for you, and you wonder what the problem is. There are your problems. You know, there are your problems right there. You know, I won't quote Sean Avery. Don't worry. I forget which. Yeah, Liz on Facebook. Sloppy seconds. Yeah, Sean Avery was they dated first or something like that. I forget what it was. I remember there was a thing between the two of them involving her. I remember that. But I like that movie she's in. I forget which one it is, about how she goes. You know, she's the adult film actress and she goes back into the high school or whatever the hell that was. I forget what, but great soundtrack. I won't turn that movie off if it's on. Christmas come early for us here who love John Tortorella still to this day. He had a press conference. And again, if you're going to sneeze, let me know now because I'll wait. I'll wait to play his press conference. Because if you sneeze, you might miss it. So everybody blow their nose right now, because I don't want you guys missing it. We go over to Brady Tritanero. He's got it on Twitter. Here is John Tortorella's press conference from the other night. Let's take a listen.
Guys, I know you have a job to do. I'm not answering any questions tonight. There's no sense of me even trying to answer questions about this evening, okay? So sorry about that. Have a good night.
And there he goes. That was literally it. I don't know if that was loud enough for you guys. I hope you guys could hear him. I know it seems a little low in the mix here. But should we play it again? Santa Torts, man. Santa Torts is coming to town. He's delivered us another gem just in time for the holiday season. Here's Tortorella again if you missed it. If you blinked.
I know you have a job to do. I'm not answering any questions tonight. There's no sense of me even trying to answer questions about this evening, okay? So sorry about that. Have a good night.
God, the man is just a gem. I love him so much. I do. I really do. I love the guy. I think he's phenomenal. Now, a couple of things on Santa Torts here. Just walking right in and out of the locker room. Or the press conference, I should say. Here's the thing. Tortorella has changed. He's become a much softer guy. I yearn for the old school Tortorella. Remember when Tortorella used to blow off a press conference? He'd be like, I'm not answering any questions. Or that's a stupid question. He'd turn around and walk out of the room. Or, you know, he'd walk in and be like, we suck tonight. That's all there is to it. I'm not answering any of your questions. We suck tonight. This is a softer John Tortorella. It really is. This is a guy who's clearly gone to anger management. If you notice, 3 points. He said, and I quote, I know you have a job to do. He acknowledged the media. I know you have a job to do. He said, thank you very much. And he wished them all a good night. Pull up some Charmin because we got a teddy bear right here. I mean, this is the new softer John. Now you maybe think, oh, he's running. He got criticized. Like he's running off. He's still the same old guy. He doesn't have his emotions in check. Doesn't have his emotions in check. Look at him. Thank you. Good night. Acknowledging the press. I know you have a job to do. If you ask me, John Tortorella has taken some major steps forward. Major steps forward. And we should acknowledge the mental and emotional progress of perhaps one of the most volcanic coaches that we have in the National Hockey League. It's true. It's really true. Let's go through it again. If you don't believe me, let's take a look at John Tortorella, Mr. Nice Guy, as I like to call him around the way, as he jumps over to the podium here.
I know you have a job to do. I'm not answering any questions tonight.
I know you have a job to do. And of course, you know, I'm not answering.
No sense of me even trying to answer questions.
I like this guy. I like this guy. What are you doing? Look at the look he gives him.
Even trying.
What are you doing, dipstick? I'm sitting here telling you I'm not answering questions. You're still putting your recorder on the table.
Questions about this evening, okay? So, sorry about that. Have a good night.
Sorry about that. Have a good night. I'm sorry. He didn't say thank you. Sorry. He apologized. Sorry about that. Have a good night. I mean, is this guy not a teddy bear or what? I mean, warms your heart just in time for the holidays. Warms the cockles of cockles. Is that it? Is that it? Frightens me. I have something in here called cockles. I love Tortorella. I think he's a great coach. I do, on the one hand, think it's embarrassing that he can't deliver a press conference after a huge loss. By the way, this was after a 7-2 loss to Edmonton, no less. I do think he's got to get that in check, but overall, God, I just love the guy. What is he going to do? Sit up there and say, we stunk on the power play and we couldn't kill off any penalties and just give you the same old jargon? He gave these guys in the press room something better than any of that. He had a little meltdown and he left without answering any questions. He gave them all the answers without really giving them one answer, which is phenomenal. I love it. But the difference is if I am the Columbus Blue Jackets, if I'm the hierarchy here in Columbus, I'm sitting John down and I'm going, look, you got maybe one more of those this year. It's your job to go out there and answer the questions. Go out there and answer the questions. Don't embarrass us. Again, I know this is kind of contradictory. I'm pulling at this from both ends. I love the guy for when he does things like this, for how he wears his heart on his sleeve. But you don't want it to get out of control. You don't want it to become too common of a thing where he's doing it all the time and then he becomes a distraction and then he becomes a whole big thing. We're all well aware of the top 10, you know, John Tortorella meltdown moments on YouTube. And they're great. And I like him popping them in every now and then. I think it's awesome. But for the most part, you got to keep your cool. By the way, it's December. You're part of one of the more successful teams in one of the more difficult, you know, conferences. So be proud of that. I mean, you're still sitting atop the Metro Division, which is maybe the hardest division in the whole hockey league. So just perspective before you go out and have those meltdowns a little bit. Just a little bit of perspective. Should the National Hockey League allow this Star Wars stuff to happen? If you have not noticed, Star Wars has taken over everything. I'm not just talking about in hockey. I mean, Star Wars has literally taken over everything. You can get a Star Wars Pez dispenser and you can get Star Wars toilet paper. That is literally start to fit. I mean, there's going to be Star Wars Alka-Seltzer one day. I'm surprised we haven't even gotten there yet. But not only has the National Hockey League been taken over by Star Wars, everything has. So should the National Hockey League be any different? Liz, nerd culture and sports culture have a large overlap, so I'm not surprised to see Star Wars nights popping up everywhere. Plus, it's a way to get kids and nerds that are not fans into the stands, especially in places where the seats are often empty. That brings me to my next point. Ottawa should have Star Wars night every night. It should always be Chewbacca night. In fact, that's where we should go. Forget Star Wars night. You need to have Chewbacca night and Stormtrooper night and Darth Vader night. We got to figure out something for those damn Ottawa Senators because they are in a whole heap of trouble right now. They can use 17 more Star Wars nights. Invite George Lucas over, for the love of Pete. Do whatever you can, but you got to figure out something. Build a Millennial Falcon outside if you have to. I mean, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. Forget Bat Day or Stick Night. You need to go with Lightsaber Night. That's what you need to do if you're the Ottawa Senators. Try and get teams in the mix. But let's talk about it. Let's break it down because it's kind of important. The Star Wars bug has crept right into the National Hockey League. Let me see here. It started in Pittsburgh, I believe, December 7th, just a few nights ago. 12 teams in the National Hockey League this year will host a Star Wars night. 12 teams. That's 19 teams that refuse to acknowledge Star Wars culture. That's a bit of a problem. That is a bit of a problem. So there's that. You have 12 teams that have hosted or are hosting Star Wars nights this season. A practice that began surfacing over the past decade, according to ESPN. Before the most recent sequel trilogy, the Tampa Bay Lightning held their first Star Wars night 7 years ago, and by the time The Force Awakens opened in 2015, 9 other teams had joined them. The trend has picked up significantly since then as the reignited cult obsession sweeps the world, and of course, NHL teams are trying to latch on. Tell you what, a C-3PO jersey would be awesome, would it not be? Or the new C-3PO. What's that? The orange and brown guy, the ball thing that rolls around. Gets to fit that on a hockey puck. When you host these nights, you get folks who are just Star Wars fans, said Aaron Tietz, the Anaheim Ducks chief marketing operator. Quote, maybe they wouldn't have necessarily seen the Ducks play the Carolina Hurricanes, but these Star Wars fans, and there's a lot of them, when they see something like this done on such a large scale, they want to be a part of it. BB-8, is that how you say it? BB-8? Is it R2-32 or R2-D2? R2-D2 332. R2-B-D. The San Jose Sharks had about 75 such characters at their Star Wars night on November 4th. The Arizona Coyotes boasted 100 on November 25th. Then there's a slick promotional poster, which has become something of an arms race among marketing departments. A few years ago, the Sharks photoshopped Brent Burns and his fuzzy beard into a Wookiee body. Oh, man. I think we actually have that. I'll prop that up for you guys in a second. The Florida Panthers wooed everyone last season when they swapped hockey sticks for lightsabers. It's better if you don't get too technical. As soon the rods are burning through Vincent Trocheck's Bauer gloves. These things involve significant planning and prep work. Plus, I guess you got to fork over some cash, I would guess. You got to fork over some cash to the Star Wars folks for using their stuff. Oh, here you go. Teams buy licensing packages so they can incorporate sound effects such as the roaring swish of pod racers and Star Wars branded infographics for the Jumbotron. There are typically sweet giveaways for fans who attend the game. The Coyotes offered Paul Bissonnette Obi-Wan Kenobi bobbleheads this year, while the Panthers handed out Star Wars mesh jerseys. Oh, those must have been cool. I don't know if we have a photo of those. Let me bring up some of the other pictures here that we have. Again, this originated in Tampa. Let's go over Let's go over to JT Brown. All right, brace yourself for this. And there's JT Brown in a stormtrooper suit. I mean, this is just, it's insanity. It's insanity. Guy's wearing a stormtrooper suit, for the love of Pete. R2D2. What's the three? Oh, C3PO, right? Or CP3? CP3O? C3PO? God, I'm embarrassing myself in front of the Star Wars fans. Look at the detail on this, though. Can you see that? Let me see if I can zoom in here for you a little bit. Look at, they got the Star Wars logo on there. Obviously, the stormtroopers are the most prevalent. It says something Army. There's a bunch of other details in there. I can't even tell what half of this stuff. C3PO. Thank you, Liz. Liz, I'm going to pay you for this episode. You're working overtime. You're working overtime tonight. Let me see here. Eddie, could C3PO wrist hand a slap shot to the biscuits in that metal costume? I would think so. I would think, I don't know. Is he flexible enough to get a good wrister going in there? I'm not sure. Look at JT Brown. Where the hell do you find something like this? He's the David S. Pumpkins of the Star Wars universe. I mean, seriously. It doesn't stop there. Amy Kaplan on Twitter has a bunch of the examples. Let's go through these. Here's the Tampa Bay Lightning in this poster. Star Wars logo, Star Wars night, Tampa, San Jose. Nice, not bad. Is Vasilevsky, is that the Darth Vader's position right there, or is that the Luke Skywalker position? I don't know. Here's the San Jose Sharks one with Brent Burns as Chewbacca. Oh, man. Is that Logan Couture as... Here's Logan Couture playing the guy in the orange suit. I don't know who normally wears the orange suit. Is that a Luke Skywalker thing? And I like the duck in the back here. That's pretty nice. That's pretty sweet. Here's the Panthers and their Star Wars night. We got Yager on the poster from last year. Yeah, it's kind of dull, to be honest with you. Panthers and Sabres from 2016. And the Anaheim Ducks in there. Yeah, Kessel wearing the helmets. Oh, look at, they turned the goalie mask into one of the Star Wars helmets. That's pretty cool. That's pretty good. Burns is a well-groomed Sasquatch. Yeah, I think Sasquatch looks at Brent Burns and is like, damn, you're hairy. I think that's kind of what happens. Is that it for the Star Wars? That's pretty funny. Yeah, so the posters and everything else, it's become a thing. It's really become a thing. Do we have some more shots from the article? Yeah, there's Brown. Yeah, there's Corey Perry. With Wookiee masks and stormtroopers behind him. It's unbelievable. Star Wars has just invaded everything. Everything. Yeah, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. I would love to see the Star Wars Florida Panthers jersey. Do we have that? I'm trying to call that up for you. Those giveaways jerseys are never really all that cool, but sometimes they can be. I guess these things are big sellers because you're picking. I mean, look, even if you're picking up 100, 150 fans, I mean, think about what that really is as far as, you know, the league goes. That's good money for whatever they have to pay for, you know, a couple of sound effects and things like that. It's not a bad thing. Oh, was that the jersey right there? That's not that great. That's not that great. Here we go. We'll pick it up on the main screen here so you guys can take a look at it. Again, if you're listening via the podcast, apologies all around. This is all stuff you can see on the Facebook and YouTube channels. I can't really zoom in all that much more, but there it is right there. You can see the jersey. Red bottom. It says Star Wars night. I guess this is their third, and the Florida Panthers and the Panther in there kind of looking a little menacing. Yeah, it's not horrible. It's not horrible. It's just not what it potentially could be when you look at all these posters and things, you know. Exclusive ticket, $25. Look at this. $25. And what do you get there? You get the ticket and the jersey. That ain't bad. It's not a bad deal at all. $25 for the jersey and the game. Man, they're desperate to sell some tickets down in Florida. Super, super desperate. 10 minutes past 7 o'clock, and that's where I'm going to leave you guys. Quick night tonight, but happy that Santa Torts came to town and delivered us some lovely goodies in the form of a 12-second press conference and getting into Star Wars nights. I think it's good for the league. I like it, by the way. Give me this kitschy stuff as much as possible. I don't care. I'm not one. I mean, look, I know I talked a lot about how the NHL teams wear great jerseys for the warm-ups and they should wear them for the games. I'm not advocating CP30, C3, I'm not advocating a Boba Fett jersey. Got one. But I like seeing stuff like this. Whatever brings the two communities together. I think Liz put it the best. You know, it's true. Whenever you can bring these communities together and do something fun, do it, man. It's what it's all about. The games and everything else, it's all about creating an experience for the fans. And if you can enhance that with, you know, some fun things like this, then awesome. I'm not going to have the same opinion when it comes to Harry Potter night. I'm not going to lie to you. I can let Star Wars happen. I got to draw a line somewhere. I can't be in there with Harry Potter night. But for the most part, you know, I think it's great for the league, especially drawing on nights when, you know, it's like Tuesday and you got Carolina coming to town. Sorry, Hurricanes fans. You know, I just think it works pretty well there. Jar Jar Bettman. That's a good one. I like that one. Jar Jar Bettman. That'd be a good jersey to have. All right. 5 Live this week. 2 more shows to go. Remember to like this and share it around if you can. If you're watching on the Hockey 365 Facebook group, thank you guys for doing that. Trying to figure out ways. Been talking with a couple of folks over there about bringing some more involvement from the Facebook groups over there. If you guys are part of hockey groups on Facebook, it's a great place to get in there and talk. We didn't get into some of the rumors, but we will. You know, we will get into it. I'll leave you with one here quickly. The update on Carlson. Darren Dreger today talking about Carlson says he doesn't fully dismiss the possibility of seeing a trade there. Whereas yesterday, was it Pierre LeBrun or who was it that was like, I can't see that happening? And I said, believe me, the Ottawa Senators are going to trade Erik Karlsson. I believe it's going to happen. Here's the first indicator from Darren Dreger. Dreger believes he has to take that to owner Eugene Melnyk. Despite Karlsson's status as an elite defenseman, there are concerns regarding his next contract and his health. Dreger reports Sens coach Guy Boucher isn't going anywhere for the time being, so it's more likely a trade of a core player other than Karlsson could be the next move. He lists Mike Hoffman, Pajot, Zach Smith, or Cody Ceci as possible trade chips, as those are the players other GMs call on most often. Pierre LeBrun notes that the Sens lack picks in the first and second rounds of the 2018 draft, and he believes the Sens, if the Sens bottom out, they could attempt to recoup some high picks before the June draft. Bruce Garrick of the Ottawa Sun reports the Senators have plenty of assets interested by playoff contenders. If Dorian wheels and deals, the belief around the league is the goal to stock up with younger talent. God, could you imagine this? Matt Duchene literally hops out of a world where he was stuck in a nonstop rebuild to go to a team where when he got traded there, all his interview answers were, it's great to go to a contender and a team that has a chance to win. And now he's going to find himself stuck in a never-ending rebuild. You know? I mean, it's just insane. Trades are happening soon because they got to get it done before Christmas. That's right. There is a Christmas trade freeze. And I think we're going to see a flurry of activity in the next 12 days for certain. Actually, it's probably 10 or 11 because the freeze comes a day or two before Christmas, I believe. I don't see them trading Mike Hoffman. I mean, he's a good goal scorer. Pajot has some potential. That's the weird thing. There are some young pieces that are in place there. I don't foresee moving out a 25-year-old forward to bring in an 18-year-old forward. I mean, You got to concentrate more. The problem for the Senators is you have got to concentrate more on chemistry. Get your locker room right. You know what I mean? Get your locker room right, because that's the problem. It ain't the coach, and it's not just Carlson, and it's not just Phaneuf. Figure out how to get that locker room right. And it might be moving out one of those pieces. But for the most part, they got to just figure out. You can't just sit there and go, trade. I wouldn't trade Mike Hoffman. To me, he's a guy you want to help build around. Mike Hoffman, Duchesne. You got to have some scoring threats if you're going to be a successful National Hockey League team. Even if you are in a rebuild, you still need some of their salary to be at the floor and all that. Ottawa's a mess. Ottawa's a mess. Question I'm going to leave you with. Who's a bigger mess, Ottawa or the Montreal Canadiens? Got a lot of problems north of the border as far as NHL teams go. Don't forget, the Road to the NHL Classic debuts tonight on NBC Network. That is right after one of the games. I believe it's probably Dallas and the Rangers. Are they the national game tonight? I think, excuse me, the Rangers on Ottawa. I think Rangers Ottawa are the national game tonight, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, no, it's Boston. And after Boston, Detroit at 8 o'clock, 11 o'clock, Road to the NHL Classic is on. Definitely watch that. Try and DVR it if you can. It'll be on NHL Network on Saturday if it's not. Don't forget the savings that we got hooked. I hope you took advantage of that 30% off at the NHL store, because it has ended. But I think you can still get 25% just by clicking the links in our description. So hop on that while you can. Don't wait for 30% to pop up. I'm not sure if it will again. But if it does, we'll be sure to let you know. And 25% is not that bad. Click on those links below. Enjoy the hockey action tonight. And I will see you guys on the next.